Futurenomics, I'm going to give you an economic perspective of where we are as the planet and the United States, and then a little bit on the industry. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I think we as speakers can continue to work, even though we are in the middle of crisis, challenge, or change. And this is when people need us the most. I do talk fast. It is not because I'm nervous. It is just because it's how I was raised. And so I always hear that from some of my speakers. So let's accelerate into the curve. The difference between a professional race car driver and amateurs is amateurs, when we get on a road we don't know, and before there's a sharp curve or a steep curve, we take our foot off the gas. And as speakers, I think a lot of us did that. We were thinking, I don't know if it's okay to market. I don't know if it's okay to sell during a time of a national whatever, fill in the blank. But then a lot of people kind of rolled on their back like a cockroach that was dead and just gave up. And I want to just encourage everybody, especially if you're listening to this or watching this right now, to get up, dress up, step up, show up, speak up, and level up. Willie would probably have a better way to say that, and he would do it with sound, and I just can't do that. So we've got to figure out what's going on so that we can address things with our clients and make sure we are addressing their pain points. So this is the economic perspective, as well as some macro strategies, and then some very specific business strategies. So just for you all, in case you're wondering what keeps Mary up at night, first off, our real growth domestic product growth is slowing, and slowing badly. This is not good for anyone. We've got out of control inflation. It came out at between 8.4 and 8.5. It is actually higher than what you're seeing in the news. Last month it was 7.9, and the only reason it was 7.9 is because nobody in the federal government wanted to put an 8 in front of that inflation number. That means for the average American family, that is another $276 it is costing them in the things they buy all the time, which is food, energy, and gas. And by the way, an electric vehicle is not going to help you because somebody has to pay for the electricity. Electric vehicles run on batteries. Batteries have to be charged by electricity. Electricity in our country still comes from predominantly oil, gas, and coal. So rising labor costs are a thing in the construction industry. It is up to 16 to 18%, depending upon the part of the country you live in. In the hospitality industry, it is 14.9%. Across the board, it is 5.6%. We still have supply chain problems. We are going to continue to have supply chain problems going into 2023 and 24. And the reason for this is 40% of everything that comes into the United States comes in through Long Beach and Los Angeles. There's 105 ships right now doing donuts in the ocean, waiting to be offloaded. And that's where your refrigerator is. That's where your dishwasher is. And that's where your books are, in case you're wondering. So the supply chain issue is going to remain a problem. The bulls and bears in the stock market are going to make the stock market continue to be a roller coaster. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500, in case you've been looking at your investments lately, is down by about 10 to 12%, depending upon which day and which moment you're looking at that, since the 1st of January. Your gains in the market all happened last year between January and the end of June. Pretty much after that, you haven't made any real gains, in case you were wondering, in case you're paying attention. This is what the market is. It's going to be a roller coaster for this year. It's going to continue to be a roller coaster. We will see a drop in the stock market. We're going to see baby corrections. There's going to be a drop probably third quarter. There's going to be a big drop in 2025 and a very big one in 2030. Now, I'll just share with you, I'm still in the market for a lot, but probably 30%, 35%, I moved to cash and I moved it back in the fall. So I am very leery of the stock market. I do have my retirement in the stock market, but I don't have cash that I need in the short term. And short term for me is 2 to 3 years. The Federal Reserve, that's Jerome Powell, Chairman Powell, they acted way too late with stopping throwing a ton of money into the market. They're printing money and throwing it into the market, and that was contributing to the stimulus problem. Also contributing to the inflation that we're experiencing right now. So they waited way too late. Jerome Powell had said he was not going to do anything until March 2022, and he said that in 2020. So we knew when it was coming. We planned for it. What that means for us is if you're thinking about buying a house, you need to buy it now, or pay cash. Because right now the interest rates, even though they increased by 0.25% or 25 basis points, the banks jumped on that. So something that was 2.5 for a mortgage in January is now 4.5 to 5 right now, even though it only increased by 1/4 of a point from the Federal Reserve. So that's the impact it's having on mortgages, as well as car loans, as well as business loans. Loans are more expensive. Jobs are still 4 million below pre-pandemic levels. But there's right now twice as many job openings as there are people looking for jobs. And that's the labor force participation rate, which is problematic. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy when we think about recessions and meeting planning, that when people say, well, we're not going to have very many people because fill in the blank, then it doesn't happen. Folks, my clients have had meetings this whole time. Now, a lot of them are in the medical world. So you think, well, they're really busy. They don't have time for meetings. I heard some of that from some of them, but others did have meetings. My automotive clients, my RV clients, they still had meetings, and my insurance folks still had meetings. The US government is spending money like drunken sailors, which is actually incorrect, because when I was a drunken sailor spending money, I was spending my own money. I just want to point that out. I was not spending other people's money, which is what the government is doing. We've got elected officials who simply do not understand math. If you would like to, if you know anybody in Washington, I will go to Washington. I will buy dollar store calculators. I will distribute them to 535 people, and I will teach them how to do addition and subtraction. You cannot throw $8 trillion into the economy and then magically expect the money to appear out of nowhere. It just doesn't work that way. I'm also worried about Afghanistan. Since the disastrous pullout in August of 2021, 95% of that country does not have enough food. That creates wild amounts of instability and rampant crime and really naughty behaviors. That keeps me up at night. And then if that wasn't bad enough, Russia decided to get real naughty. Keep in mind, they've been planning this for 11 months. This is not something new, and they've been planning it really over 20 years, but they're just looking for a good opportunity. And in case you don't know, Russia doesn't have enough of their own trained folks. They're bringing in mercenaries, and that's a problem. So this is what you're seeing in headlines. It's all bad. The pause on federal student loans sounds like a good idea, but that's $1.8 trillion that if you divide out among all of the Americans right now who are citizens, it winds up being $5,421 per person. So that's a terrible idea. China is not seeing economic progress. That is going to make them more desperate. The lockdown they've got is a problem. And then, of course, we know that we need immigration reform, and it's not coming soon enough. Some of you know this about me. I am a card-carrying crystal ball toting economist who talks about leadership, and I try to make it really funny. Sometimes it's better than others. I only have 30 minutes, so we're not going to be so funny today. I'm just going to give you what I think you need to know. So how are our speaking businesses affected by world events? They are. What are my planners worried about? Everything. What are my audiences worried about? Everything. By the way, when I first got out of the Navy, this was how I started my speaking career. I thought you might find this funny. I needed to be able to bring my dog to my programs because my poor little doggy was home all day. So I called it Leadership Lessons from the Dog, not me in uniform. And then I would bring her to programs. And I just thought you might find this funny because, you know, I do. So we're worried about finances. Most people are. Americans are worried about their finances. This is what your audiences are concerned about. 68% worry about not having enough money to retire. We have some friends who are in this category. 56% are worried about keeping up with the cost of inflation. And this was back in November before the inflation numbers hit. Keep in mind, back in the fall, inflation was at 2.5%. 52% are worried about managing debt levels. For those people who have debt, 77% say that they're anxious about their financial situation. Even if you're doing okay, people are anxious. 58% feel as though finances dictate decisions and their lives, even when they make bad decisions and bad choices. 52% say they have trouble controlling their money-related worries. What does this translate to? Well, we know that 64% of Americans right now are living paycheck to paycheck. This is a change from pre-pandemic when it was 49%, because people took the stimulus, they stayed home, they lived stimulus to stimulus, and now they're back to living paycheck to paycheck. We know that the average credit card debt is about $6,300. And that's spread over 5 million credit cards. And for the people who have emergency funds, interestingly enough, the 18 to 30-year-olds have 6 months worth of funds, but they're mostly living at home with mom and dad. And I'm not saying that to be funny. 55% of 18 to 29-year-olds are living at home with mom or dad or both. And this is why the 30 to 49-year-olds don't have an emergency fund, because they've got all the stresses. They're the ones who have the kids. They're the ones who have, they're trying to manage a household, and they're the ones who have been mostly impacted by the you-know-what. So Americans are sometimes saying, well, I don't have enough money. We hear this a lot, except there's about $1,500 a month that are considered non-essentials as of September. And that number has not significantly changed in the past 5 months. So financial stresses, and Bill knows this better than anybody, it causes absolute fatigue. Any kind of stress acts like chronic pain. So it creates fatigue. It creates difficulty concentrating at work. It creates trouble sleeping. It negatively affects relationships. The top one thing couples fight about: money. Number 2, sex. Number 3, children. I do not talk about 2 and 3. So the top big picture goals, what people are worried about: saving for retirement, buying a house. The reason buying a house is back up on the table for so many people is because the millennials started buying houses. Folks, the millennials are not children. They're 40 and 41 and 42 years old. They've been buying houses just really the last year or two. They're doing everything 6 to 7 years later than their parents. Here's the concern on that. Your house generally represents 65% of your wealth if you are part of the 65% of Americans who own their own house. So because of that, when you delay buying the house, you delay building up that equity. And more people have worried about buying a house with housing prices increasing. Now, the top short-term goal that many people say they have is to travel. For those people, it's because they haven't been on a plane lately. The top short-term concern before all the inflationary numbers came in were rising prices. This was from McKinsey and Gallup, and this was back in November. So just so we're all clear, when I'm talking about GDP, what does this mean? Our gross domestic product is our C plus I plus G plus our exports minus our imports. This is our consumer expenditures, that's the C, the business investment, which is the I, the government expenditures, which is the G, plus our exports minus our imports. Our exports minus our imports, by the way, that's our net exports. It's not nearly as impactful as most people think it is. The interesting parts here is the consumer expenditures, which in a normal situation for our gross domestic product and our economy is about 70%. And the government expenditure is generally around 16 to 17%. Well, right now, our government expenditures as a percentage of our GDP is 33%. That's scary because it's not backed by anything. It's just an expenditure. And keep in mind, we're 16% of the world's global economy. And this is important when you think about Russia going into Ukraine, because the Russian economy is right now a little under 3% of the world's GDP and dropping. Keep in mind, Ukraine is rich in all of the things that everybody uses, all the natural minerals, precious metals, the lithium, the uranium, titanium, all of the special things. So our gross domestic product did take a hit during the you-know-what time, and then it's bouncing back. But a lot of that bounce back is due to artificial stimulation from the government. So the inflation numbers you're seeing a lot of, finally, I've been waiting for this for a year. I've been telling all my clients for the past year and all my speaker friends, raise your prices, raise your prices, raise your prices, because you're going to have to. If you've got a flat travel for fee, you need to raise that, because you can't get anywhere for a flat travel of $1,000 anymore. And this is going to be a thing. So this inflationary number, it's really 8.5. That was my projection. This is what we've been looking at, and you can see the drastic increase over time. This comes from the U.S. inflation calculator. We've never seen anything like this. A month ago, it was 30 years. Now it's 40 years. We haven't seen this for over 40 years, and it's going to continue to increase. And it's the things that people care about. Core inflation measures everything except food, energy, and gas. What do people most care about? Food, energy, and gas. And the things that people care about are seeing the steepest increases. So if you look at this, and these numbers have all doubled since last November. These are last November's numbers. And the reason I show this to you is because it's a really cool graphic. And secondly, because bacon at 20% increase, well, it's up to 40%. If you've bought a pound of bacon lately, it's about $7. All of these have doubled as a percentage change of their cost. The laundry equipment, that was already high. But everything else has doubled. And so feel free, by the way, and thanks, Marilyn, for throwing that in the chat. Like, throw things in the chat because I can monitor that while talking at the same time. It really doesn't even faze me. But used cars and trucks is going to continue to be a thing, at least until we get semiconductors rolling. They're going to build a plant in Columbus, Ohio, but it's not going to be anywhere close to production ready to help any of us right now. But these are things that people care about, the durable goods as well as the consumable goods, and the costs have gone up. And here's the problem. Wages have not kept pace. Of course not. Wages are only up on average by 5.6%. You have an 8.5% inflation rate minus 5.6. You got a delta there. People have less disposable income. And if that's you, and you're one of those speakers who's saying, well, I've got to, cut deals for my clients, please, please, please understand that it is much easier to do one decent sized fee increase rather than a series of small ones. So in the CPI category, that's our consumer price index category, topping of the list. And again, these are November numbers. So we cannot blame this on Russia. We cannot blame this on anything else except our own poor decisions. Energy commodities, top in the list. Used cars and trucks, top of the list. Keep in mind, the United States does have 5 of the top 10 semiconductor production facilities in the world. And then energy, and then all the things. The surprise here is that more people are not drinking and are not smoking more. That to me is the big surprise. So here, I thought some of you, I was trying to figure out where some of our CPAEs might be coming in from today. The inflation in metro areas, this is current as of last week. You can find a city that works for you. And this is about the percentage increase across the board for inflation. Interestingly enough, New York, 5.1%. And that's because prices were already high. So airline costs are going up. I mentioned that. And it's because aviation took a huge hit during the you-know-what. More than 5% of our GDP, and it's 1.6 trillion all the time with 11 million jobs. This is where they need to recoup their money, and we are the ones who are going to be paying them. So your airline costs are just going to continue to go up. So please, please, please increase your flat travel. We'll see what happens with Spirit. So the combination of Spirit and Frontier together would be the 5th largest airline we have. And now with JetBlue playing, we'll see kind of what happens. It did throw a very big wrench into all of that. And the problem here is, again, cost. What does this look like for the passengers, business travel? That would be us. So let's talk about wages and salaries for just a second. And then I'm going to get into some business strategy, what we get paid for work. So this is the math. People have less spending money, and this is problematic by almost 3%. So this is an issue for people. And then Russia being very naughty and jumping into Ukraine. I've mapped that out. That's a whole other program. It's affecting the global economy in 8 main ways. I'm going to highlight a few things. First off, even Putin was like, they're trying to blame the results of their mistakes on us. Okay, the guy was kind of right on that. I just have to say that. Watch the oil. The government, the White House made a decision yesterday that they were going to allow oil and gas to be used that is not it's sweeter oil. During the summer months it's thinner, but if it's not the sweet oil and use the regular stuff we use during the winter, it pollutes more. So they've basically thrown climate change out the window with that decision, not all of it, of course, but some of it, and said, well, we'll just use the dirty stuff, it's fine. And then we're going to release some of oil from our reserves, which doesn't really help us so much. Keep in mind, the United States in our borders has enough oil and gas to fuel us for another 2,041 years. So how does this affect what Russia is doing? Well, some of you very kindly decided to give up drinking vodka as a protest against Russia, and thank you so much for that, except it doesn't really do any good. Anything that you see as a Russian vodka really doesn't come from Russia, it comes from Poland. And here's their top imports: mineral fuels, precious metals and stones, iron, steel, fertilizers, inorganic chemicals. Same with Ukraine. The cost that we've got for refugee numbers, when you're talking about 10 million people being displaced, that is a huge cost, not just on the gaining countries, but throughout the world. And then inflation on the global side, out of Europe right now, you got to remember that European energy costs were 5 times higher than they were a year ago and had nothing to do with Russia. This was before that. And now the inflation numbers are coming in. They're a little bit slower to report than we are. We're about 3 months behind. They're closer to 4 or 5, and they're coming in at over 7%. The world GDP growth is falling. That is a direct result of Russia being wildly naughty. So what does this mean for the average American and the average speaker? things you care about are up: gas prices, inflation, construction, housing, rents, labor, taxes, and certainly the uncertainty. In case you're looking for your books, this is Long Beach and the Baja Peninsula, and your stuff is somewhere out in one of those ships that are floating around doing donuts, and that's where things are. So tariffs is a nasty little tax that governments impose on imported goods that many people don't realize they are paying. The reason your lumber costs more at Home Depot and Lowe's is because the United States, we did this to ourselves, imposed a 10% tariff on lumber coming from, where do we get our lumber? Canada. If we don't make it ourselves, it comes from Canada. It was 8% a year ago, now it's 18%. This is contributing to the cost of housing. We are looking at a recession. Keep in mind, a recession is 2 successive quarters of declining GDP growth, or just declining GDP. So we will possibly see some recessionary numbers. People throw that around. It is something that is measured, is not something just to toss around. As I said, your investments, hang on. If you are risk averse, now is a good time to consider the safety in other places. And I was with a group of bankers and I asked them, I said, where are y'all putting your money? Because I don't know what's safe anymore. And they didn't have great answers, but we can talk offline about that. Bill might have some ideas. So trends in energy, a lot of us think the idea of having clean oil or clean energy sounds fantastic, except that's not where the production is, and our consumption is certainly not there either. So when we look at we're still very much using natural gas, oil, and coal. Nuclear is a distant fourth. I like investing in nuclear stuff. I just don't know how exactly. But then when you look at world energy consumption, remember I said, so you got to go on this journey with me, Russia is 3% of the world's GDP, but they consume 4th in the world for energy. And then you're looking for why Russia is doing what it's doing. So coal production remains a viable source of energy for most people in the world. China and India are still building coal plants. So our climate change, we have, I think, 53 coal producing or coal production in the United States. And China's building another 1,000, India's building another 800. So ours is kind of a drop in the bucket. Interest rates are going up, like I said, because the Fed is moving them up. It went up by 0.25% in March. It's going to probably go up by 0.5%, 0.5. They do FOMC, it's the Federal Open Market Committee. They meet every 6 weeks. And so that means May, the first week of May, and it'll go up by probably, and this is the merry guess, is 50 basis points or 0.5%. They will continue to do this. You will see mortgage rates at 8% by the end of the year. So fiscal and monetary policy is taxing and spending. That is your elected officials. Monetary policy is the Federal Reserve. That's controlling the money supply, the setting interest rates. Again, that's federal funds rates and the discount rates, not necessarily what your bank puts on you, but that's a byproduct of that. And then the required reserve ratio, I know it sounds like pirate talk, but the required reserve ratio, it's how much cash banks need to have on hand. And right now we are working opposite. So we're increasing taxes, which slows down the economy, and we're spending more money, which stimulates the economy. Wait, what? And then monetary policy, we're throwing money out into the economy, and then we're raising interest rates to slow down the economy. What? So it's like we're both we're playing tug of war. So housing trends, you've seen this. You don't have to live in Manhattan, New York. You can live in Manhattan, Kansas if you want, because you no longer have to live where you work for many instances. And that's driven housing prices up by, on average, 19.9%. Taxes are going up and they're going to be everywhere. It's the sneaky taxes you're not going to see. You pay over 250 different taxes. You just don't realize you are. So it's going to be everything from your cell phone to your landline to your internet in your house everybody talks about the big ones, the gas prices and your income tax and your state taxes and your property taxes. It's all those other ones that you're not necessarily paying attention to. And this is eating away at people's disposable income. So the tax brackets, don't believe what people say when they say we're not raising taxes. Well, you didn't raise taxes so much as change the income brackets. This means higher taxes. The labor force participation rate, these are the numbers of people as a percentage who are working in the United States. It's defined as 16 to 65-year-olds who are not incarcerated, not full-time students, not full-time homemakers, either working, can be part-time or full-time, or looking for work. And that has gone up to 62.4%, which is good. The millennials are doing their share. That's good. But there are still a lot of people who have fallen out of the workforce. And some of that is simply because your kid's school keeps canceling and you have to be home and you can't get childcare. So our labor force participation rate is not where it needs to be. I would very much like us to be up near that 66 instead of the 62. And of course, we did see a drop during the you-know-what. Average household income in the United States was lower in 2020. We don't have 2021 numbers yet. And that's kind of because it's an average, and that makes sense when a lot of people weren't working and they were relying on stimulus. Consumer confidence is how much we spend and when we spend based on how confident we feel about the economy. If I have a lot of confidence, it means that I feel good about my job. The economy's doing well. I feel cheerful about taking vacation. There's lots of jobs out there. I can move across the country and not get too worried. My investments are growing. People are borrowing more. That's high consumer confidence. On the low side, it means consumers are spending less. Demand is weak. The job market is not so strong. Investments are shrinking. We're certainly seeing that. People are borrowing less. Well, if you need a loan, get it now, because in the latter part of the year, it's going to be more expensive. And the University of Michigan comes out with the Consumer Sentiment Index, and it is dropping. And interestingly enough, it has dropped a lot in the past 60 days. People are still sort of spending like this when they should be spending like this. And we're going to see more of this moving into the future. Now, what does this mean for average purchasers of cars? Because the semiconductors, also because the price of steel that's gone up by 40%, also because the price of labor has gone up, the average new car in the past 2 years has jumped by about 10 grand. It went over 47,000 in December of 2021, and it dropped a little bit in January. So this, again, is strapping people. Our total vehicle sales have dropped, again, because we can't get all the parts we need and the donuts in the middle of the ocean. Now, I wake up every morning and look at economic data, so I thought I'd just share the fun with you. This morning, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, this is our U.S. national debt. We went over $30 trillion in 2021. That means the debt per citizen, that's every man, woman, and child, is about $91,282. So if you had a grandbaby or a baby in the past 18 months, you had a you-know-what baby, this is their share of the national debt right now. Now, your share is only $242,500, and this is at 8:05 this morning Central Time. A few other things to pay attention to. What's below that, where it says U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio, where it says 1960, we're at 53% debt to GDP ratios. If I start talking about the GDP, in the 1980s, even with Vietnam, we'd gotten a little bit lower than that. It was almost 35%. But then in 2000, we'd increase, and now we're at 125 and climbing. And this is very scary because there's the way the numbers are moving forward, this does not seem to be decreasing. And in fact, if you have a grandbaby or a you-know-what baby, I don't like to say the virus word because it's that which shall not be named. If you just project this out, so let's say you had a grandbaby in the past year or two, and let's say that baby is adorable and at 18 months or whatever, a year and a half, so crawling around, walking around, very cute. Well, let's fast forward 4 years. Their share now is $118,000, and your debt per taxpayer is $302,000. So that's fast forwarding again as of almost 9 o'clock this morning. And then our debt to GDP ratio jumps up to 150%. So these numbers scare me because I think we're not being good stewards of future generations. So how do you feel so far? Have a puppy, feel better. Let's do some strategy. So we know that after years of economic growth, that business is more challenging for most people. And what we did before simply probably isn't quite enough now. So what do we do? So how do we get more in business? How do we as speakers help people through tough times? What do we need to do? And how do we find the time to do what we need to do? This is what I shared at Winter Conference. This is how I look at it. I try to look at the big picture. I try to make sure that I am focused on the purpose of the business. What do I provide? The benefits we help our clients with. And then I plan things out. I look at things through a clock. I guess it would be this way. And then plan out what we need to do, and then make sure we've got the right people in place to get the things done that we need to do. I'm sharing a link with you that includes the full Mac Daddy version of this. This is my in case of emergency break glass. I threw it in here as a slide so I wouldn't forget to mention it. Folks, none of us are going to live forever. So please, please, please take time now and plan out what it is you need to have happen in case you cannot make decisions for yourself. Please, please, please do not put that on your family and friends. It's just mean. It's 144 pages. Most of it won't apply to you. It's fill in the blank. Please, please, please do this. You're getting this as part of the link you're getting in a few minutes. So I know, Bill, I'm all full of fun. People meet me and they're like, you're so much fun. And then I start talking, they're like, you're not so much fun at all. So here is how I view the strategic plan. And I focus again on the clock. So the picture, purpose, plan, people, and what that looks like. So who benefits with our success and how do we differentiate ourselves? How do we be better? I mentioned it at Winter Conference. You don't have to be better than Marilyn Sherman. I'm not going to be better than Marilyn Sherman. I just need to be better than Mary Kelly was yesterday. And that to me is enough of a challenge. I just have to be a little bit better every single day. So how do I map things out? How do I create the path for what my clients need for what moves forward? How do I hold my team accountable? How do they hold me accountable? How am I holding myself accountable? I'm going to share with you what I do. Again, there's a million ways to do this business. I'm just sharing with you what I've been doing. I do subscribe to the theory of efficiency wages. I hire the best people I possibly can, and I pay them as much as I can. And my administrative assistant, my business manager, whatever she calls herself these days, she's been with me for 15 years, since literally the week after I left the military. So she's been with me the whole time. My website designer's been with me for 15 years. So I'm very, very lucky. And I want to make sure that I've got the people in place to do what I need to do and who think like they own my company. And that's what I hire for. And thank you, Lenora, for your very kind note on that. So time management, a few things. I know it's anything that I had that's in small print, it's because there's a handout for it and you're getting the handout. A few things that I think I do pretty well. And that is I plan my day and I work the day. I plan my work, I work my plan. My dad taught me that. And I know that a lot of people waste time. And I look at every single minute as, I say life is an unknown number of finite minutes and we cannot waste them. So I know if I've got work time, it's work time. If I'm on a plane, that's work time. If I am stuck in an airport, that is not stuck, that's work time. And I can focus. A lot of people, use that as an excuse to not work. And that's not an excuse to not work. I can't really make great phone calls from airports. I find that really distracting when I'm on the other end of those. So I try to be respectful of that. But I schedule the calls, I schedule the meetings. I do use a scheduling program to do that, like most of you. I prioritize the tasks. The first thing to do every single morning, folks, is do what's going to make you money. Do what's going to help your business. Don't return emails that don't matter. Don't go on Facebook and comment on your friends. Do the thing that's going to make you money and be rigorous about work. I say, work 8 to 10 hours a day. I work more than that, but it's because I do. It's what I like to do. And I don't really care that you don't feel like working. Nobody cares. Feelings do not have anything to do with this. It's all about a decision. Make the decision, get the work done. That's all it is. Every day, do what you need to do to stay on track. Get back to your team so that you're not the one holding up the train on that. And once you get into the habits and routines every single day that your body knows, once I get on a plane and we hit 10,000 feet and you feel that shift, you pull out the computer and you start writing, you start getting things done. When things pop up, categorize them. Do short things right away. If it's 2 minutes, get it done right now. Delay it if you need to schedule it or you need real brain power. Harvard says we only have about 4 hours a day of big brain power. So when you think about that, you're at an event, you're talking to people, that's all fun, but it's not big brain work, which means you're talking for an hour, hour and a half. So that's big brain work. That means you got 2 hours left of big brain work. So go work big brain stuff and go do the things you really need to do. Delegate things that you're not good at or you don't like doing. I do have assistants. I have a team. But I also use Fiverr and Upwork and all of that. I do not do my own PowerPoints. And somebody was kind enough to mention that when they found typos in my handouts from Winter Conference. Those are fixed, and thank you. I wasn't ever planning on seeing them again. And so there's that. And then delete things that don't matter. Decide what you can just walk away from. There's great freedom in deciding you just don't have to do certain things. So do it, delay it, delegate it, or delete it. I do practice what I call my 90-day cycle of love. So this made more sense when it was Winter Conference, right after Valentine's Day. Now you just think it's weird. So it's a 4-step process. Step 1 is choose 30 people to love on for 90 days. So then number 2 is I grab 7 or 8 people from each of these categories, either past or current clients, somebody who's coming up, somebody who's thinking about me, some audience people. A lot of times audience people, and I know it's true for everybody, they're an audience and we don't think they're going to hire us, but maybe it's their friend or their boss or their company or their side gig or whatever that is who can't. So find those audience people who really love your stuff and then love on 7 to 8 of them for about 90 days and then move to somebody else. I do a good bit of work with bureaus. I've been very fortunate. And then I do cold outreach. So then the question is, what do you do if you don't have past clients? Or if you're like some people where they had 3 or 4 really great clients, and now those clients, those people have all retired and they're gone. And all of a sudden you had a really good business and now you got nothing. So you kind of have to start from scratch. So where do you get people for cold outreach? So the Intel Engine, I use Sam Richter's Intel Engine, shameless plug for that. LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, the Encyclopedia of Associations, and then the associationexecs.com. And then What Kind of Love, I'm going to show you what I do. So the 30 days, so you 30 people for 90 days. Here's the areas. This is what I'm talking about. What do you do if you don't have past clients? Well, you need to find your friends. And if you don't have any friends, then you go to the Intel Engine and you stalk your friends. That's what I do. And then cold outreach might be 50% of that. Because you got to remember, when I came out of the Navy, this was the picture that my dad had on his desk. And so that's me and my older brother, both at the Naval Academy. I'm a brand new little plebe, and there's tape on it and all that. But you got to remember, when I came out of the Navy, I didn't have any past clients. I didn't have any corporate experience. I didn't have anything. So here's what I use: the Intel Engine, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, the Encyclopedia. And you go to your library. It's totally free. You just go and start with your local area. Oh, this looks like an interesting group. Oh, they've got a conference and they bring in 2,500 people a year. Yeah, I think I can target those folks. And then you can do the association execs. You can get the free trial for 2 days. And if you don't sleep for 2 days, you can get a lot done. I'm just saying, with that free trial. So this is Sam's speaker Intel Engine. I use it. When I see gap in the calendar, I'm like, I got 2 weeks off. I need to go be looking for something. And I do. I get in there and I go look for things. So this is what Sam does. You can email Sam for this. I wasn't sure if he'd be on the call. I was kind of hoping he would, because I can go, hey, Sam, guess what? So what kind of love do I do? I'm going to connect with them on LinkedIn, and then I'm going to send them a note. And I do the handwritten notes. I make postcards of 3 or 4 times a year. So they get a postcard with a new free resource, a new program, or just a thank you from Mary. I've got boxes of postcards that are kind of generic. I did a dumb thing a couple of years ago. I put Happy New Year 2021. Yeah, that was stupid, because then I can't use it the next year. I'll send out one of my books with the one sheet. I'll send out one of my worksheets. I'll get 100 of them printed, and I'll just for this purpose. I will send out other people's books and workbooks. So if you've got a new book and you're like, hey, Mary, I got a book. I do this all the time with people. I send you a case of books. You send me a case of books. I send it to my clients. You send it to your clients. It's a win-win for everybody. The sales triggers, industry information links. Again, Sam. I'll find something in their industry and I'm like, hey, I saw this on, beer production, and you're with Pabst Blue Ribbon, so I thought I'd send it to you. I hit the print button. I will print articles so I can put a note on it in my handwriting, not the Post-its, because everybody knows that comes from robots. And I'll be like, hey, Bill, I saw this, thought of you. It's in Laurel, Maryland, where you used to live. And I thought this might be interesting. Now, the other thing I do is I do swag. People who know me know that I like wine. And it's kind of a thing. And I probably talk about wine more than I drink wine. No, that's probably not true. But I like wine and I like dogs. So I try to tie that together. So I have printed wine bottle openers and aerators and also the fun little cork things. And I will send that in a little package. And I will say, Dear Jane, be on the lookout for what goes with this. And of course, it's all little whiny things. And I try to make sure I know my people who drink wine. Some people don't drink, so got to be careful. And then all of a sudden, the wine will arrive 2 or 3 days later. So it's 2 different packages. So it's 2 different touch points. It's all about the touch points. I will sometimes send them a link to a current or a past webinar. If I'm going to record something, I'm going to get some mileage out of it. I'll put it on YouTube. I'll send it to past clients and say, hey, I know you're looking for value added for your team members, your clients, your members. Here's a webinar. You're free to share this. I do micro learning packages. and I will create a 5 to 7 minute, a quick video. Hey, here's me talking about how you can increase your employee engagement. And I've got a form for this, for the form, and then I send that to them. And then I do a cookie blast. Let me show you what that looks like. So when I do my mail outs, it looks like this. It is a disaster on my kitchen table. I have an 18-year-old who comes over to help me, and this is what this looks like. I send out my one sheets with this. I have different ones. My packages are fun, bright colors because I learned that from Beth Z. She's cool at this. I will send out other people's books. I will buy their books. I will send them out. I will reference them. I will do all those things. Okay, here's the cookie magic. All right, so I have a gal who does the cookies. Her name is Christine at cookiecharm.com. And she will put your dog's pictures on cookies. She will put your clients' faces on cookies. She will put their logos on cookies. She will put their book. See, they don't care about my book. They care about their stuff. So once I figured that out, I put their stuff on cookies. They're like, okay, you went on my Facebook page, you saw that I have dogs, you did all you found all the fun memes that I made with dogs, and then you put them on cookies with my pictures on them and my team's pictures. Scary, creepy, and also wildly cool. So that's that. Now, part of the speaker hustle, and I think I just have about a minute left, is do you have the daily discipline to do this business? So are you determined and deliberate and decisive every single day? What spheres are you dominating? What is your niche, your industry, your community? And then when you show up, are you wildly dependable? Are you distinctive? Are you dynamic? Are you diligent? Are you all of those things? And then fill in the blank. Where do you want to be? And what is your daily discipline? And what is that like? And then what spheres are you in? So for me, I like the credit union space. I like anything to do with finance. I like medical, wine, and spirits. And then I show my expertise with white papers and reports and articles and podcasts. I have other people on podcast. I like other people's podcasts. And then when we show up, how are we doing what we know they need to do? So that's what that looks like. That's me. That's my information. And it's 4:00 and I need to stop.